Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 548. I had the white pieces and played e4, and my opponent goes for the Sicilian defense with c5. So I play the main moves here, knight f3, he goes e6. So e6 is the third choice. The sort of mainline Sicilians are d6 and knight to c6, lead to all kinds of exciting variations. E6 leads primarily to the Taimanov and the Khan Sicilians. It's also a way to get to the Scheveningen type of pawn structure. And it's a little more positional. There's fewer forcing lines, so it's an interesting way to play. And I've been actually trying out the Khan Sicilian myself in my over-the-board games and in Blitz as well. So interesting way to play. Okay, so white goes d4 to open up the center, typical open Sicilian. And now a6. So this is a dividing line between the Khan and the Taimanov. The Taimanov continues with knight c6, putting immediate pressure on white's knight in the center. A6 is a little bit of a slower move, but it keeps the knight from hopping into some key squares and prepares for some later expansion. So I continue with knight c3. Already it's possible to play bishop d3, which is a common idea against the Khan. So in the Taimanov with the knight here, on c6, putting pressure on the knight on d4, then this bishop d3 move is not possible because it blocks the defense of the knight by the queen and just leaves that knight hanging. But it is possible in the Khan, and so that's it's a popular choice here. It's a good square for the bishop. Knight c3 is also a popular way to play. And now knight c6 would transpose back into the Taimanov. That's one way to play it. Or queen c7, that's the way to stay in Khan territories, and that's kind of the main line of the Khan variation. That's the way I play it. And b5, the third choice, is also staying within the Khan variation, and an interesting way to play. So right now I should play bishop d3, this classic or typical move against the Khan variation. You can see it's the top choice by far. You're just preparing the you're just defending the center with that bishop and putting it on a good post. This pawn on e4 is not yet under attack, but black can attack it quickly with moves like knight to bishop to b7 and knight to f6. So it can come under fire pretty quickly, so it helps to get some pieces out to defend it. So anyway, I play a different move. I defend the pawn with f3. So, I don't know, we're still keeping some advantage to white, so it's not a terrible move, but not maybe the best move. I think next time, if I remember, I will play bishop d3 in that situation. Okay, so he goes bishop b7. We get some normal developing moves here. Bishop e3, d6. So now he's set up this Scheveningen pawn structure, the two pawns in the center. They're controlling, a lot of space on black's side of the board, which makes it difficult for me to advance and get some kind of attack going. So it's a very solid setup. It does have the weakness that this d6 pawn can come under fire because it can't be supported by another pawn. This pawn is advanced too far to support it, and the c pawn is gone. So it has to be supported by pieces, so that's why it's a weakness. But if black keeps that in mind, it's probably not a big problem. But it does give white something to play for, so I can try and organize my forces and try and take advantage of that weak pawn. Okay, well, I want to prepare to castle here. I play bishop e2. He goes bishop e7. He's still avoiding this knight c6 move, so I could have easily played bishop d3, but it's not clear with this pawn structure where that light-squared bishop belongs just yet. So I'm just getting it out of the way so I can castle and keeping the d file open. Okay, so I castle. He plays knight f6. Getting one of his knights out, I go queen d2. He castles. And so I think it's been normal development so far. One thing that I missed, I wanted to talk about a little bit earlier here. There was an opportunity to play, I think, maybe right after d6 when I went to bishop e2. Maybe a little sooner. Somewhere along here, there's an opportunity to play this a5 move to undermine this pawn. Let's see, after f3, bishop b7, bishop e3 here, b7, a4 is starting to pop up as an idea right here. Okay, where I castled. Yeah, so instead of castling, which I was just continuing with my plan, where I played bishop e2 and then castle, it is possible here to play a move like a4. And this is not an idea that occurred to me in the game. This a4 move, though, it's playable in several different positions, not just here, but elsewhere. The key thing is that whenever you see this pawn structure from black, where he's advanced the queenside pawns and, fianchetted his bishop, it's a good dynamic position for black. He's gained space, but you can also undermine those queenside pawns. You just have to play it at a time when you're not worried about his b5 push. That's a typical b4. That's how black would typically answer that. If you can exchange, of course, you're just winning a pawn. So let's take a look at this. Play a4 here. He pushes on with b4. Let's see, you can drop the knight back to a2 in this case, hitting the pawn. And let's see, knight to f6, defending it. Doesn't that lose a pawn? Here, let's look at this recommended line. Knight f6. Can't I just take it? Oh, I'm sorry, not knight c6, knight f6. So here. And yeah, just letting me take that pawn. Is there a trick? Then he plays d5. Okay, leading to complicated play, but well, white's picked up a pawn there. And if black defends the pawn with a move like, let's see, let's back up till it's black's move again. If black defends the pawn with a move like a5 here, then it opens up the b5 square for the bishop to come in and give a check. So that's pretty good. Looks like c3 undermining is also good. So anyway, those are some ideas to keep in mind if you see this kind of structure. I castled, played knight f6. Yeah, a4 again could be played here. Queen d2, he castles. And now I start maneuvering my knight around. So once again, a4 is an alternative to this idea, but this knight d1 idea is not too bad. I'm getting out of the way of the c-pawn, and I'm bringing the knight over here to the king side, where I hope that it'll be useful. So he plays knight c6, and I go c3, and we still keep a position which is in the range of about even, although the chess engine here is starting to like black. I guess because I've retreated this knight, and my other pieces aren't so actively posted. How should black continue for the max advantage? Well, queen c7 looks like the move he played is one of the good moves here, so let's follow the game. Queen c7, knight f2, and knight a5 is how the engine wants to continue, or knight e5. Now look, it's changing its mind a little bit. So maybe a slight edge to black, but we're still in the range of about even. So let's see. I continued with putting my rooks in the center, rook f to d8. It's black's move. He continues putting his rooks in the center, rook f to d8. That's a very logical move, defending the d-pawn there. I bring my rook over, and he plays knight to e5 here. Good outpost for the knight. And I go bishop f4, indirectly taking a look at the knight, although this opens the position up to some tactics here. He plays knight c4 immediately. Knight back to g6 maybe is even better. Knight to g6. I drop my bishop back. I have to get out of the way of this fork that's coming. And then knight to h5. Okay, so he can go after the bishop and pick up the bishop pair with this kind of strategy. So that's, and my pieces have gotten a little bit crowded on the king side, and my knight on f2 is blocking the retreat of this bishop at the moment. Yeah, so black is doing pretty well with that line. Let's see, he played knight c4, which is a forcing line. It's hitting my queen, it's hitting this pawn over here, and it provokes the exchange, which is pretty typical. You know, when you have this pawn structure, you don't mind giving up the light squared bishop so much. So he might try b takes c4 as a way to get kind of a clamp on my position and maybe go after my b pawn. But he took with the queen. And then I went bishop back to g3. I needed to get out of the way of this pawn push once again that was going to fork those two pieces. So that all worked out just in time. He goes with e5 anyway, probably because he had that in mind, looking at those pieces ready to be forked. But e5 is not a good move here particularly. It leaves him with the backwards pawn. So for him to keep the advantage, yeah, he should probably just continue to go after my dark squared bishop. That's a good piece, and if he can trade that off, that's probably worth something. Okay, so he went e5 here, kicking my knight. And now I have some good squares for the knight. I drop it into f5. Notice that I could come back here to b3, and that would protect the a-pawn. The a-pawn really is not all that important. You'll see when it drops the evaluation. I actually lose that pawn in a few moves. I was just pointing that out. So he goes bishop f8. Cancel that. He should go... He went bishop f8. Okay. I was thinking, yeah, bishop c8, taking a look at that knight is interesting, but he's got to defend the bishop, right? Bishop f8. Drops back. Okay, I go rook f to e1. He goes queen takes a2. So he grabs the pawn here, which is the right move. But it's not such a big swing. If he just ignores the pawn and plays queen to e6, bringing the queen back here, then it's about the same as taking the pawn. Not all that different. So this pawn just doesn't really matter a whole lot, I guess. Although in the long run I'll be down a pawn, so I do have to be careful. But I wasn't too worried about losing a pawn here. So anyway, I start rearranging my knights, knight to d3. I want to try and sink a piece onto that square. And I managed to do that. Brings his queen back. I probably did this in the wrong order. I should probably play knight to e3 first, kicking the queen, and then play knight to b4. I wanted this knight b4. And I just noticed now that he could, or at this point in the game, that he could kick the knight with the move a5, and I can't immediately go to the d5 square where it wants to go, because it'll just get traded off and I'll end up with a pawn on that square, which I don't want. But I do have the intermediate move, knight to e3, kicking his queen, so I'd still be able to get a knight there. So this is still okay. Let's see. Well, the engine thinks this is good for black. Let's play this out. a5, knight to d3, kicking the queen, queen to e6, and now knight to d5 here, and then trading everything off. Takes, 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 queen takes, queen takes, rook takes. This is actually very similar to the game. And yeah, he just needs to defend the b pawn, and he's come out a pawn up. Okay, so he played queen c7 here. I went knight e3 now. He went 85. So we actually get to a similar position, but his queen is here instead of here. On c7 instead of e6. So he takes, I take, he takes, I take. And that was the point of this maneuver, was to try and keep a piece here, which keeps this pawn backwards. If I'm forced to take back with a pawn at any time, then this pawn is much safer, and I don't have a weakness to attack. So he went queen c5 check here. And right now is my chance to get the pawn back very simply. I can just take his queen, and he has to take back with the pawn, and then I can grab the e-pawn. So that's the best way to play. Instead, I dropped my bishop back, and he traded queens. And now if he just defends his b-pawn, he has good prospects for the endgame. Just needs to defend that pawn. It looks like defending with the d-rook is much stronger for some reason. That's mysterious, because doesn't that... oh, his bishop is holding on to this pawn, so bringing this rook over. This rook is not really doing anything on the d file, so bringing it over to the b file is the best way for black to play this. Instead, he played f6 here, kind of a mysterious move. Shores up the center, though. Maybe he's worried about this e-pawn in case this d-pawn drops. But now he loses the b-pawn, and so the material is even once again. And that was probably his best chance to win the game. That was the closest either side had to a winning edge. But it pretty much, let's see, I don't think anything much happens in the game. I go rook to d1. I want to get some pressure on this backwards pawn. I was thinking I might be better here just because his bishop is so bad behind all these pawns. But it looks like my bishop isn't doing a whole lot either. Let's see, he brings his king into the game. I double up, Cancel that. Oh, I bring my other rook forward. I bring rook d to d5. I don't want him to be able to push this pawn forward, and also didn't want to give up the b file and let him get an attack on my b pawn here. So he brings his king up again, and I start to bring my king into the game. So that's how you know you're in the end game. The kings come forward. So he decides to dissolve the pawns on the queen side, and that does leave me with a weak d pawn. So we have these offsetting weaknesses, and that's why neither side really has an advantage. Let's say I push this forward, and he goes rook c8 to go after the pawn, and I push it forward once more. And this, this trick does work. Let's see, did I have other options here? Now c5 is basically the only move in this position, so I was glad I found that in the Blitz game. It disconnects the rooks momentarily, but it's defended here, and I'm threatening to take the pawn, so he probably needs to take. He can throw in a rook check first, but in the long run he's got to take that pawn. And then I can take back with the bishop. Don't want to take back with the rook because his bishop is still on it. That's a terrible arrow, this arrow. So take back with the bishop, and then we get these trades. And at this point we're in a completely even endgame. Cancel that. He throws in a check. He can do that. King goes here. Then he trades off the other rook pair. So it's just rooks and same number of pawns, and the pawns are all on one side of the board. So that's pretty much drawish. So let's just step through the rest of it. There was no real deviation from a drawn position, and that's where we agreed to the draw right here. So anyway, that's how the game ended. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.